How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about conditionals in Python. So conditionals in any programming language actually are very important in your program because they basically dictate the flow of execution of your program. So what that means is basically, if there's a specific situation or case and you want your program to do a specific thing in that case, and then in any other case you want to actually do another thing, right? So how do you actually tell your program how to do that? So that's where if-else statements come in, or conditional statements come in. So let's give an example. First of all, we'll define a variable called age. We'll set that to be 20, right? And then we actually want to check, first of all, if this age variable is actually greater than 18. And if it is, we're going to print something. And then if it's not, we're going to print something else out. So how do you do that in Python? Well, first of all, we're going to use an if-else statement. So how if-else statements work is basically you say if, and then you want to actually put a condition. So age is greater than 18, then colon, right? So what this is doing is you're basically saying if this is actually true, if this condition, age is greater than 18, which in this case it will be because 20 is greater than 18, then colon, right? Press enter, you're actually going to execute this code. You're going to run this code, right? So what's going to happen is, in this case, 20 is greater than 18. So then when it checks that if age is greater than 18, the answer is actually true. So what's going to happen is we're going to go down into this block of code, right? And it's going to print this out. Now notice that it's actually indented. It's not like this, right? Well, why is that? Well, because indentation is basically how code is structured in Python, because it tells the program that this is actually what you want to execute if this is true, right? And then if you have any other code that's not actually related to this, you can actually put on the same level, right? So you need to make sure it's indented if you want to actually execute it if this is true. And then you might say, well, that's fine, but what if it's actually not true? What if age is not greater than 18 and I actually want to print something else or do something else, right? And that's where else statements come in. So else is basically just saying else, colon, enter again, and notice again, it automatically indents it for you because that's how it's supposed to be. Otherwise, an exception will be thrown. So as you can see here, when I say else, I'm going to print something else out, like you are still a kid, right? So how does this work? Well, first of all, for starters, when you run this, see what's going to happen. Again, what's printed out is you are an adult, because again, we ran through this and the age is 20. So what's going to happen is, first of all, we go through here and say, okay, if this condition is true, which in this case 20, or the age, is actually greater than 18. If it's true, I'm actually going to go inside this block of code. So inside is indented, anything that's indented under if is going to be executed, right? And that's why it's printed you are an adult. And notice that actually this is not printed out. Well, why is that? Well, because this is true. So why would you check if the else, why would you run through the else part and actually run that code? Because you're only checking if this is true, do something, otherwise do something else. So since you know that this is true, you don't need to actually check or do anything else. That's it. You just print this and you're done, right? So you might say, well, okay, but what if I actually wanted to test another case? Well, that's where else if statements come in. So else if is basically what it sounds like. You're saying, okay, first of all, you're checking if something is true. Then you're checking if another condition is true. Then finally, you would check if about every other situation, and then you would do something in that case. Now notice, else statements are actually not required. You don't have to actually do an else statement, right? But it's sometimes good practice, or depending on your situation, right? So else if, you would say elif, which is basically like short for else if, and then again, you would have a condition. You would have a condition here, and you would check if it's true. So let's say my condition is going to be if age is equal to 20, right? I'm going to also put a colon, and I press enter, and again, I'm indented, and anything that's actually indented under this conditional statement is going to be executed. So I'm going to say print you are 20, right? So when you run this, notice what happens. When you run through this program, first of all, this is going to be true, so this is going to be executed, right? But then some of you might say, well, why is this not being executed, right? This is actually true. 20 is equal to 20, age is equal to 20. What's happening? Well, this is how conditionals work. You only get one case which is true, right? You're not going to actually, when you first get the case which is true here, you're not actually going to test everything else, because You're saying, if this is true, I want you to do this, right? That's it. This is done. You don't actually need to check this or this. You're done. That's it, because this is true, right? So what's going to happen is this is going to be true, this is going to be executed, and then it's going to go to the next code and it's going to skip this part because now this is true. So it's very important that you actually organize the order of your conditional statements. So let's say you actually wanted to do this and actually wanted to do something if the age was 20 and do something else if the age was greater than 18, but it's not equal to 20, right? So how would you do this? You can just rearrange this. You can change this to be, actually let's just do this, right? If, so now, but remember, you cannot actually start with else if. That's not right. You have to start with if, because that's the first thing you're testing. And then I would say else if, oops, see, this is not right. You have to actually have it on the same level. It cannot be indented, right? And then I would say else if. So notice this would actually do what? When you run this, first of all, it's going to check if age is equal to 20, which in this case it is, and that's it. You're done. You're not checking anything else, and the program continues to the code that's after this part, like print after conditional, right? So notice what happens is it first goes in here, checks if age is actually equal to 20, which it is, prints this out, and knows now that it actually does not need to test anything else because it actually got a case where it's true, and then it just goes to the next code after the conditionals, and that's what it prints out. So again, make sure when you're actually working with conditionals that you think through and you think ahead what you're actually going to order first, and think about all the cases, right? Because this is basically one case when age is equal to 20. This is another case when age is either 19, 21, 22, 23, 24. Notice I didn't say 20 because it's not going to reach this point if age is 20. Why? Because you already have a check before it to check if it's 20. So in this case, if you actually reach this case, the age is either 19, 21, 22, up all the way till infinity, right? Okay, not infinity, right? There's a limit on the numbers that you can actually input, but that's basically the idea. And then this would be if age is actually equal, oh sorry, not equal, if age is less than or equal to if this was not 20. Let's say this was 15. What's going to happen here? Age is equal to 15. So is age equal to 20? No, it's not. So I'm going to skip this. Else, if age is actually greater than 18. 15 is not greater than 18, so I'm going to skip this and go to the else. And so the else is going to print you are still a kid, which makes sense, and then it's going to print this after conditionals. So I hope you guys actually understand how conditionals work, at least on a basic level, and it's important to understand again the order of actually how you structure your conditionals and when to use else ifs and how to use them, and that should be what you need to understand conditionals right now. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to stay tuned, like, and subscribe.